Alright guys, so it's the next day and last night I literally started the car as everybody was waiting for me for dinner inside, so I couldn't wait to see if it was gonna start, but I didn't let it run for a long time. So now let's start it again, let's let it warm and let's see what the sensors are gonna show. Let's see what the pressure is like. For example, I can see now that I haven't hooked up the tachometer cable. We want to see how the tachometer is going to correspond to the computer readings, and we're going to check the timing as well, again with the light, because now we know that at idle it needs to be 22 before top dead center. At cranking it was 14 and that was supposed to transfer to 22 at idle, but we will see. Maybe if it is not, we're going to adjust it. We're going to synchronize the carbs and then we're going to adjust the throttle position sensor one more time. So yeah, let me push the hoses, the exhaust outside. Turn the computer on again. I unplugged the battery yesterday, so now we're gonna plug it in. Okay, let's see. Okay. You see, yesterday I adjusted a little bit the idle with the screws, and now my throttle position sensor shows 2 when it is actually fully closed. So that's why we're gonna have to readjust it later. Okay, let me see the fuel pressure. Yeah, it's even under 10. So I'm gonna adjust it now. So much easier when the car is running. Okay. That's 11.5 now. Okay. And it stays 11.5. Good. Let's check the timing. Okay, so my light now is at 0. And yeah, this is close to top dead center, even when I'm at 0. But I want it to be, okay, I want it to be 22. So I want it to show top dead center now. You know what I mean? Okay. So let's move it. Now the RPM went too high, so I'm not sure that we need to have it at 22 at this RPM, so I'm gonna drop it to 950. Not sure why it varies so much, but now you see the timing also changes. Like I'm not doing anything, it is changing on its own. Okay, that's 1100 RPM. That's where I'm gonna keep the timing for now. And when we are able to stabilize the idle, because now it's varying so much, when we are able to stabilize the idle, we're gonna adjust the timing once again. So we're gonna start with, like, we have to play with everything a little bit with that. That's gonna change something else. Then we're gonna adjust this, we're gonna go back, adjust the other one until everything goes smooth. Okay, so these are all the sensors here, and this is what we have. The coolant temperature is already at 188 Fahrenheit. So this is where the IAC valve needs to close completely or stay somewhere around 0. And the purpose of the IAC valve opening a little bit at cold engine is to increase the RPM, basically, by introducing a vacuum leak into the manifold. And initially, when we started the car, it was at 40. I didn't show you. But now you see it's pretty erratic. It's opening and closing all the time. I don't know why it does that. because the temperature is up to temperature already. Alright, it's been a while, and as you can see, it kind of learned already and it adjusted itself, so it is running kind of smoothly. We still have to synchronize the two carburetors or the two throttle bodies, but it runs much smoother, around 900 RPM. Let's look at the BLM9 now. You see now I revved it. I revved it a few times because the fan wasn't coming on, so turned out my fuse for the fan is not working very well, so I added external fuse for the fan. So anyways, then I had to rev it up and down and make sure that the fan comes on and off, so now it does. But in the meantime, you see the ECU collected some data, and what this is RPM versus vacuum, manifold vacuum. So this is the reading from the map sensors here, from 20 to 100. So depending on the RPM and the vacuum, we fall here into a different cell. Right now we are at 800 at 60 vacuum, sync 850 and about 60 vacuum. So the green cell is right here, and it comes up with this number, which represents how healthy the engine is running. We need to have this number as close as possible to 128. If it's less than 128, it is rich. So it's not running very well in this situation, but here at 2,400 and 2,800 RPM at 30 vacuum, it was running pretty well. So the ECU memorizes now what the settings were in this situation here and just applies them every time it comes back to this situation. So now it is learning what to do at this situation at 800 RPM and 60 kilopascals. We can help it by adjusting a little bit the fuel pressure and by adjusting the throttle bodies, etc., etc. But before we let it self-learn everything about these situations, we need to make sure that we have all the settings right. So now that we are stable around 900 RPM, let's check one more time the timing. We want it to be at 22 before top dead center at this RPM, right? So my light is still at 22, and as you can see, we are a little bit retarded. So I'm gonna adjust it. Right there. That's good. Now let's adjust the airflow. So this one is, what is this? 14. And this one, we're pretty good actually. This one is 12. But we're still gonna adjust them. For this reason, we're gonna have to disconnect. Oh, you see these holes? It collapses completely. This is the IAC hole, the idle air control valve, which is closed most of the time, but just in case we need to pinch it for this procedure here so it doesn't interfere with our airflow synchronizing. In our case though, the hose is collapsed. As you know, this is a temporary hose. I'm still waiting for the good one to arrive. So we don't even need to pinch it because from the fact that it's collapsed, it's clear that the air valve is closed. So for this reason, we have to disconnect the linkage between the two carbs and make them independent, because now by adjusting one, we are adjusting the other one too. We're gonna loosen this, let's say this one here. There you go. So now when we press the throttle, here, only this carburetor is operating. This one is not. Let's run this. Let's move this one. See, when we touch this one is not moving. So let's see now. Oh my God, this hose is driving me crazy. Today I should get the correct hoses. I'm waiting for them to arrive. So let's see that again. This is till 14. So let's bring it back to 12 by turning the screw, the idle screw. There you go, now it's at 12. And this one is at 12 as well. And now from here, they are equal. So if we want to adjust now the RPM, we have to turn both at the same time. If we want higher RPM, we turn this by, let's say, quarter turn. With this, we turn this one quarter turn, just so we can keep them equal. But I don't even need to touch anything because it is running at good RPM right now. Let me show you. Well, maybe we can increase it a little bit because it's going to 900, but it's most of the time it is below 900. It's going down to 800. So I'm going to increase it a little bit. I'm going to turn them both to the right by not even quarter, maybe an eighth of a turn. And let's see what's happening there. Okay, that's perfect. So now let's just make sure that we're still equal here. 12 and 12. Perfect. That's where we're gonna leave them. From now onward, these two screws, the idle screws, have to be moved together. If we move this by quarter turn, we move this by quarter turn. They have to stay the way they are. And we shouldn't forget now to tighten the linkage here. Okay, so now with the throttle, we move both. It's still hesitating a little bit when we press it, right? But now we still need to take a look at the TPS, because now we move the throttle and our TPS sensor might have lost the calibration. So let's look at it. But we're actually pretty good. That's close to zero. So that's fully closed. And when we open it, it rises. Let's see. Okay, so we don't need to adjust it, but always, if you adjust anything on your carburetors and on the throttle, always need to come back and check the TPS calibration, because it might be lost. In our case, it's not. Okay, well, in this case, we actually have nothing else to adjust. Everything is set up to its initial setting, and the only thing that we actually touch on the system from now onward is the fuel pressure, depending on whether we're running rich or lean, and we can take a look at that as well. We're gonna have to adjust a little bit the fuel pressure and the behavior of the car. Now, I just want to change this hose. I hope to get my correct hose soon. Right now we are actually running without IAC valve, but we're okay. It is like pretty good. I'm happy. Okay, so now with all these new settings, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the fuse out to the ECU, and that's gonna erase the BLM table and all the settings, etc., etc. Because right now it collected information with different settings. We were touching here and there. So we're gonna let it sit for like 10-15 seconds. We're gonna plug it back in and we're gonna start the car again. Oh my God, this fan is noisy. and we're gonna let it idle, and we're gonna start actually playing with the throttle here also. We'll try to, it's best if we drive the car at this point. We take it on the road and we drive it, we take it on the highway, drive it under different conditions, and let the computer create a new BLM table and analyze it and see. Oh, thank you. The purpose of that is so we can erase all the BLM and all the memory that the ECU created already, because that was based on some random settings here. Now that we have everything set to where we want it, now we can start fresh with clear memory, and we're going to let the ECU collect data in different situations, which we're going to try to represent here. Like we're going to rev it, and we're going to go all over the place to try and represent some different situations on the road. But best is if at this point you take the car out on the road and drive it. Take it to highway, take it on country roads, even in some traffic, in a residential area with lots of stop signs and stuff like that. So you drive the car into different conditions, and this way the ECU is going to collect information and build a new BLM table, and then you're going to be able to analyze it and see, oh, okay, at 2500 RPM and under load I am rich or lean or whatever, and that's going to give you a little bit of an idea how to adjust your fuel pressure, because like I said, this is the only thing from here that we should touch. Everything else is set to wherever it needs to be, and we shouldn't touch anything else anymore unless we have troubles with something, but I think we are in a very good situation here. As you're driving, you can save a log file and BLM. I'm gonna show you later how to do that as well, and send these two files to Rick Patton, and he's gonna analyze them for you, and he's gonna tell you what to do, like what adjustment you can do on your car. But before you save those files and send them to Rick, you better go through all the settings here, and you make sure that your timing is at 22 before top dead center at 900 RPM, that your two throttle bodies are synchronized, that your pressure, fuel pressure is around 11.5 or whatever you figure out initially, and then save that data. Anyways, let's plug it in now, and let's start it again and see how it's gonna behave. I thought that pump was too noisy before, but now after I start the car, I don't hear it anymore. Initially I was hearing it, I thought I was hearing it over the engine, and I was like, how is it so noisy? But I think it's fine now. Oh wow, she starts like a charm. So now the IAC is open 64 steps. That's initially when you start the car, and then it's going to start closing depending on the temperature of the engine and the load and everything. And it's going to drop the RPM. So the RPM is so high initially because of the IAC valve. It's still open. Now it started dropping. 52, 49, 60, 43, 40, 32, 16, 14, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now our IAC valve is completely closed, and it should stay closed. Our fan came on right away, so everything works as it should. Now let's observe the BLM table. I'll bring you closer. Actually, we have to clear it manually. Okay, now it's clear. Actually, that didn't clear the table. I had to come here and press the clear table, and that erases all the data. So now we started fresh, and I'm gonna start revving it and going up and down the scale to see if we can represent different situations. So we have to visit a cell multiple times in order to save data in it. But now let's raise a little bit the RPM. Okay, let's now the explanations that I'm giving you here are based on my very minimal knowledge about electronic fuel ignition systems. There's a lot more to it than what I'm giving you here, which I also don't understand in full. That's why I don't want to go too deep here, because I might mislead you. So don't quote me on this, but my general understanding is that the ECU is taking maybe 20 times a second the reading of the O2 sensor, and based on that reading, it decides whether the fuel ratio is rich or lean and makes corrections to how much fuel to add to the mixture. So this is the short-term fuel trim integer. You can observe these integers in the INT table, which I haven't showed here, but you can see the tab up there, which is right next to the BLM table. So how does the ECU make corrections to the mixture? It's by making the pulse of the injector longer or shorter, and this way it controls the amount of fuel going into the ratio. So this pulse is measured in whatever units, like something internally in some computer units, and they are between 0 and 255. The higher the integer, the longer the pulse and the more fuel added to the mixture. So the best ratio is achieved by a pulse length 128. So we are looking for a number as close as possible to 128. So based on these corrections, 20 times a second that the ECU made, the short-term corrections, the ECU comes up also with this BLM number, which is, as far as I understand, the average of integers from the last 1 second or half a second, because I believe the BLM number is generated twice a second. So that's the long-term fuel trim. You see, when we talk about short-term and long-term, we're talking about milliseconds. Short-term is 20 times a second, long-term is 2 times a second. So again, the BLM number, we are trying to bring it as close as possible to 128. If the BLM number is less than 128, this means that the ECU thinks, based on these readings, that the fuel ratio was reached. That's why it added less fuel than 128. If the number is higher than 128, then this means that the ECU thinks, again, it thinks based on the readings from the last 1 second, that the air-fuel ratio was lean, and that's why it made the pulse longer than 128 to compensate by adding more fuel. So that's my basic understanding. I might be wrong, but that's how I see it. But I'm sure that if I'm wrong, somebody here can correct me. So if you notice here, it was 90 before, and the ECU made some changes. I don't even know what changes it made, and it brought the number to 128. Now this number is 98. I'm sure that if we continue passing through that cell, eventually the ECU is going to learn what it needs to do in this situation, and it's going to make it 128 as well. Well, something happened here, brought it back to 90. So I don't know how well this is shown in the video, but initially after we reset the memory, the response was not so good. It was going like, like it was taking a little bit of time. Now it learned, the more I do it, the more the ECU learns what to do in this situation. And look at that now. Immediately responds. and we're running with this hose, which is not great. Like I said, it collapses. So I think we should stop here, and we're gonna continue after we got the correct hose, because this is stupid right now. So that might affect our readings as well. But let's look at the table quickly. The numbers are almost everywhere already close to 128, because the ECU continues to apply changes to bring this number close to 128. And the more you drive, the more it learns. And once it brings it to 128, it continues to analyze it, but it already knows what settings to apply to all the components in this situation. As soon as it sees, okay, 90 vacuum and 1600 RPM, okay, these are my settings for that, and I apply them right away. I'm gonna continue to analyze in case this number changes, but if it doesn't, then I'm just perfectly good. I just know the settings. So as soon as the situation changes, the green block moves somewhere else, immediately it knows what settings to apply. So that's the best part of it, that it is self-learning. So that's where we're gonna leave it for now. I'm gonna start putting seats inside and everything. I'm gonna have to finish some other things in the car, but we are mostly done. And once this hose arrives, we're gonna change it, and then we're gonna start the car again, and we're gonna do a little bit more tests. Unfortunately, it's cold outside. We have snow, and actually we're expecting a snowstorm tonight, so we can't take it out on the road. But again, we're gonna do the final adjustments in the spring, which I believe there's not gonna be many, because I think everything is set up just beautifully now. All right, it's the next day. Yesterday I didn't get my delivery until late, so I took the opportunity to bleed the brakes actually of the car, because they had to be bled. So this morning I already started working here, and I replaced this fitting. I hope you can see it. Now these two hoses are much better organized, and I figured also the hose from the anti-run-on valve to the manifold was pretty badly cracked, so I got another hose here, which I'm gonna use to replace that one. That's, I believe, 1/4 inch. Then I have 3/8. You see how thick the wall of this one is. 3/8, that's for the IAC valve to the manifold. And I also got 1/2 inch for these 3 hoses here, because these are all cracked. So I'm gonna replace all that, and then we're gonna start the car again. Now we have the opportunity to do another cold start. Okay, so everything is up to date now. I mean, this hose, like we said, we wanted it to be facing this way. This hose now from the anti-run-on valve to the manifold over there. These 3 hoses are nice and solid now, no cracks anymore. And most importantly, the IAC hose, that's the one that was collapsing on us before, because it was a stupid vinyl hose. Now we have a silicone one. So time to start the car again. Let's see how easy it is gonna start. It is cold, as you can see here, 58 degrees Fahrenheit, etc., etc. So let's do a cold start and see how she's gonna act. Okay, she's in neutral. Yeah, took a while. She's running smooth already. I never showed you, but the check engine light comes on when you turn the ignition on, and then it turns off. I just made sure that it turned off. Okay, oil pressure, fuel, temperature, good. So let's see what's gonna happen here now. Don't worry about the time. It's not correct. Okay, it's 2025 now. It is February 13th today. Anyway, you see now the TPS shows less than 0, but again, negative 0.3 or positive 0.2 is where we want to be. It's never going to be zero. You see the IAC valve is now 40 steps open, and it acts like a choke when the engine is cold, because now you see slowly the engine increases temperature, but while it is cold, the IAC valve introduces vacuum leak into the manifold, and that leads to the O2 sensor sensing that we're running lean, and the computer immediately compensates for that by adding more fuel and make the mixture more rich. So that's how, by adding air into the manifold, instead of making the mixture lean, we're making it rich. Also, by introducing air leak, we're dropping the vacuum into the manifold, and that means load. For the ECU, that immediately means we have load on the system. And again, tries to put more fuel inside. So I'm not sure why now the RPM is going up. But let's wait for it to warm up and we'll see. So we're watching the temperature, 76 degrees already. At around 160 degrees, the IAC should start closing. We're getting close to 160 now. So let's see if the IAC is gonna start closing. There you go, 39, and now it's gonna start going down until it reaches 0 or somewhere in the single digits. And you see the RPM now drops. There you go. It's completely closed now, and we're stabilized at 900 RPM or in the neighborhood. So O2 sensor, it's always going to vary, because what the O2 sensor does, it needs to be somewhere around 0.5. Anything above 0.5 is rich, anything below 0.5 is lean. So it constantly changes, because what happens is the information that it gets, it sends it to the ECU, and the ECU compensates by adding more fuel or trimming fuel off. Then immediately what the O2 senses changes to the other side, so now the ECU compensates the other way around. So constantly the O2 and the ECU work together at keeping the average number at 0.5. I'm sure there's a lot more that we can do here, that we can read from this information, but I don't know everything. I mean, I started learning about injection systems just 4 months ago, so but if you do a little bit more research on all these readings here, you can learn a little bit more. That's how I learned from researching. Anyways, so there's one more thing that I need to show you here, and that is how to create log file and BLM file that you can send to Rick Patton for analyzing. So I'm gonna turn the car off. All right, so how can we do that? First of all, we need to reset the ECU, because the information that we're gonna save is gonna be the average from your last reset, which might be in months ago. Which means that even if you have perfect numbers and you have perfect settings for the last 1 hour, let's say, that is gonna mix with the average from a month ago when you could have had issues with the car. So that's why it's best if you reset the ECU and just save information that is up to date. So disconnect the fuse, keep it off for like 15-20 seconds, plug it back in, and then we can start. So first of all, we're gonna go to BLM and we're gonna clear the table. Then we're gonna go to data logger, and right here we're gonna select sensor data. That's all we need. And then we can click start. Now it starts recording. So now we can start the car and go for a drive. So immediately we already know what's happening here. Things start changing. I'm gonna go play with the throttle. Okay, I'm just gonna turn it off here, but the longer you drive, the better, and the more sales you feel here, the better. So you can try as you're driving, if you have the laptop next to you or somebody is with you, you can try and navigate the green cell through the entire table, try to visit the same cells multiple times, and it's gonna record the data, the current data for these cells. So once you're happy with that, after 15-20 minutes drive, then you can come home, turn off the car, you can come here and say stop, and come here and say save table. And the two files are created. So if we exit this for a second, are you sure? Yes. Exit, exit, oh, exit everything. And we come to our WinALDL folder, and these are our two files. One is log file, one is BLM file. They're also saved with the year, the month, I believe, yeah, because we have the wrong date and wrong time here, but you can see 2024 November 5th at 8:12 and 38 seconds. These files were saved. So these two files, put them in an email, send them to Rick Patton, and he can analyze them for you. If you want, you can open them. They're text files, but they're all numbers. It just saved the data from all the sensors and then also the BLM table. See a different RPM and whatever. So this, guys, is everything. I mean, the system is installed, perfectly drivable. Again, it would be best if we could drive the car, but I just want to show you what's going on outside. You think we have enough snow here in Canada? That is my tent. So you see, okay, this is the snow that fell from my roof. That's not how much it snowed. Let's go outside, I'll show you quickly. Okay. Don't eat the yellow snow. Yeah. Oh, there's a little bird over there. So yeah, this is how much snow we have. My TR4, I cleaned up my Spitfire, which unfortunately is living outside. There's a car under this as well. That's my gray Spitfire. But yeah, this morning I spent probably 4 hours shoveling the driveway, snow blowing it actually, didn't just shovel. I'm expecting now this to come right in front of my garage door. So that's gonna be fun. But yeah, that's why we can't go for a drive. But like I said, it's best if you can go outside and just feel the car and keep watching the BLM table, and you can even deal with it by yourself. When you see numbers below 128, this means that it is running a little bit rich. If it is above 128, it's running a little bit lean. What you can do, if you see that it's running rich, you can turn the pressure, the fuel pressure down a little bit, because with the same time of the injector being open, but with lower pressure, you're gonna send less fuel in the air fuel mixture, right? And it's gonna make it a little bit leaner. Anyway, I still have lots of work on this car. I still have to do things that are not related to the fuel injection system, but even with the fuel injection, I wanna go and group hoses and wires now and zip tie them here and there, make the engine bay look a little bit nicer. And no, I'm not forgetting, we're gonna have to make domes for these throttle bodies or carburetors or whatever you wanna call them. But we are kind of done. The installation is completed. The rest is cosmetics. By the way, the car has been running now for about half an hour. We're kind of in the hot zone. And let's go underneath here. I wanted to show you the exhaust. I can hold my hand on it. So the thing is, just wanted to make sure that this is not too hot here for the fuel, but no. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap the exhaust in header wrapping tape, and that's gonna be it. It doesn't need to be. It's hot here. Wow, that's surprising. It's hot here, but not here. How come? I'll bring my thermal camera. So here's my thermal camera, and you can see the red dot at the top of the screen shows the hottest temperature on the screen, which is in this case 110 Fahrenheit. Wow, my lights produce a lot of heat. Then the green dot at the bottom left shows the minimum temperature on the screen. In this case it is 57 or 58, and then the white dot in the center shows what the temperature is where you point the camera, so 73 degrees. So let's see the exhaust underneath. So here the exhaust is the hottest, I don't know why. And then where the filter is, it's not that hot anymore. What does it show? 133 Fahrenheit. Well, it's not that hot. The filter itself, where is the filter? It's 77 degrees right now. The exhaust right next to the filter is 130. So yeah, I think just wrapping this section of the exhaust here is gonna keep the filter nice and calm, even cold, even though there's no problem with it anyways. Maybe under load it's gonna become hotter, but under load the car is also gonna be moving, so it's gonna be cooling down from the air. So I don't know, I think it's not too bad, because I shared that with Rick about this thing, Rick Patton, and he told me that these pumps are not great at suction. They are better at pushing, but they suck at sucking. So it's not a good idea to move it away from the gas tank. Here is the best spot for it, so we're gonna keep it here. I think we're okay. I also came here and tidied up a little bit in the engine bay as much as I could. I kind of cleaned up, so you see here these wires are together here. This one is secured down there going that way. Here I zip tied it so it doesn't get pinched in the steering joint over there. Here where the thousands of hoses are, I think I was able to clean it up a little bit. Like, it's still those loops. I don't know, there's no other way, I believe, to make this. So, but at least these hoses are now grouped here, and these wires, I can put another zip tie here for these two, for example. But yeah, here they're grouped, here they're grouped, and here they're grouped. I made another loop down there, so it's cleaned up. It's not perfect, but it's much better than the chaotic wires going all over the place. So I think we are kind of done with the throttle body injection system, other than fabricating covers for here. So I think that's gonna be our next job, and we're gonna put the air cleaners and go with the video. All right, so here, before we make domes, I want to show you the covers that Rick Patton actually sells. So instead of making your own domes, you can buy these covers from Rick Patton and just take the screws out from the adapters, put the cover and run the screws through, and that's how your throttle bodies are gonna look like. So These covers were donated to me by the owner of the other TBI car that I worked on. He wanted to put domes on, so I made domes for him already, and he donated the covers to me. But for this car as well, Tom wants it to look like original, so we got a set of domes from David Tushingham, because Tom's original domes, he wants to keep them for, like, just in case he ever wants to convert back to carburetors. Like, this is the advice I gave him: just keep the parts just in case. This is the only part that we need to modify, and it cannot be reversed. That's why we're getting extra ones. So what needs to be modified? Well, first of all, we need to shorten this tube here and get rid of the plunger inside, so we can actually close this on top of the injector. Also, there's added thickness to this, right, because of the adapter. So now, even after we shorten this tube and we put it on top, the cap is going to be too tall and it's going to hit the bonnet. Believe me, I tried before. So we have to shorten the top part as well here. So the added thickness is 625 thou. Okay, so we need to reduce the height of this dome by 625 thou. Now, in the first place, we have a little bit here. This ridge needs to be removed so the cover can sit flush with the adapter. So this ridge is about 50 thou. So we need to remove another 575 thou from the top of the dome, somewhere there. So we need to shorten this much. And that's it, and then we can put the cap back on. So I'm sure this can be done with hand tools and files and maybe a little Dremel or something. But luckily I have a lathe. I invested in a lathe. So let me show you how we're gonna do that. Ta-da! We have carburetors again. It looks like original, doesn't it? A little bit stubby at the top, but look at that. I like it. It can almost trick you, right? Okay, so that is done. I also wrapped the exhaust. I didn't expect it was so tricky, that thing, because bigger in some areas and smaller in other areas, and all of a sudden it's not easy to wrap it. And believe me, my fingers are now all itchy. I don't know what's in this. I hope it's not asbestos. But whatever. Yeah, so this is where I was planning to say, okay, that's everything, but it's not, because I received an email from Patton. Very nice email, I should say. He's very pleased with my videos, which is an honor, but also after watching the first 4 videos, he made a list with some points that weren't very clear for me, and I said, I don't know what this is, or I don't know why I'm doing that, but that's what the instructions say. So he made some points here, he clarified some things for me, so I'm gonna go over these with you as well. So in WinALDL, we changed the 24 to 48 bold, and that's apparently the speed of the data transfer between the laptop and the ECM. Now the coil and the distributor block, if you remember those 2 little wires that I wasn't sure if they have polarity or not, and I said probably not, because this is probably a switch just on and off. Apparently it has polarity and it's important, but Rick also said that if I had the polarity reversed, the timing was going to be very uneven and unsteady. So according to him, probably I have it connected properly. He said that the 2 wires were held with the zip tie, and I actually saw that this zip tie and I wasn't sure where it came from at some point, but apparently that was holding the 2 wires in the correct way. Now this is a problem only in this application, because in the future the harnesses that come now with the new kits, they have a plug there that can be switched. So for you it doesn't really matter if you are installing this system now. These 2 wires are gonna come with a plug and it's gonna be impossible to mess it up. The other thing that he said is that this this heat sink here, I have it upside down. He's not sure if this really matters, but he prefers to have the low voltage wires under and not messing with the high voltage wires that are going to be above. So I'm going to take this heat sink and I'm going to flip it upside down. Also, the little blue wire here that we had to disconnect when we were setting up the initial timing of the distributor, I said I don't know what this is. So Rick is clarifying that this is the bypass circuit between the ECM and the ignition module. So when this plug is connected, the ECM is mapping the timing. So it is playing with the timing up and down as required. When the wire is disconnected, then the ECM is not able to mess up with the timing, and now we know that we can set our initial timing properly. Because if we are playing with the distributor and in the meantime the ECU is playing with the timing, we don't know what we're doing. So that's why we interrupt this circuit when we are setting up the timing, and then we connect it again. He also said that the timing, we set it to 14, but we touched it after that, so I don't know what it is now at cranking, but he says that normally the timing should be set to 12 before top dead center at crank, but if we want a little bit more zip, then we can go to 14 like we did. But if we feel pinging while driving the car, then we can turn it back to 12. So again, this is something that we're gonna have to determine when the car is on the road. We're gonna see if it's pinging or not, and then we might play a little bit with the timing, but we shall see. Okay, he also points that on the intake manifold we have 1 fitting in which we have 3 hoses connected. One is the booster, one is the map sensor, and one is going to the charcoal canister. So he's concerned about that because he says that the 3rd hose that goes to the charcoal canister might affect our map readings. However, this hose is not going to the charcoal canister, it's going to the anti-run-on valve, which is normally closed at all times while the car is running. It only opens for a short time when we are turning the engine off, right? So it can kill the engine and doesn't allow it to diesel. So I mentioned that to Rick, and he didn't say anything anymore, so I believe that is fine, because like I said, this hose is closed in the other end at all times, so it won't affect our readings. Okay, also the little chrome nipple on the fuel regulator that I said that is overflow, and I mentioned that somebody said that in their application this hose is used as a vacuum. So Rick says that, I'm gonna read the whole thing to you because I don't wanna recreate it. So he says, we use it as a drain in case of a diaphragm failure inside the regulator, but in fact its main use is to allow that same universal regulator to be used on boosted installations. On boosted systems, the injectors express fuel into pressurized manifolds. Okay, I'm missing the rest of the email. So basically he says that in boosted systems, since we have pressure in the manifold, connecting this hose to the manifold sends positive pressure to the regulator, and that signals the regulator to increase the regulated pressure as well. However, in our case, if we connect it to the manifold, we're going to have vacuum on that hose, and that only makes the engine run worse. So anyway, that's it. Really nice email from Rick. Thank you, Rick, for your nice comments. He's very pleased with the first 4 videos. I'm hoping that the 5th one is also going to be approved by the inventor of this system. So anyway, I'm going to flip this heatsink now upside down, and that's going to be the last thing. Then we're going to be all done. Finally. All right. So I flipped it, and it looks much better actually. Not only the high voltage wires are now separated by the low voltage underneath, but it also looks much cleaner, so I like it much better like that. I went and I checked my videos from the other TBI car that I didn't install the system there, I just set it up properly. And it was installed upside down as well, so I guess that's why I assumed that that's how it was meant to be. But this here is much better. I like it. All right, so now I can tell that that's everything. Well, let's just start it one more time to make sure that it starts, because now we relocated some wires and stuff, so who knows. Okay. It's a cold start, so hasn't been started since yesterday or the day before now. I don't remember, but let's see. Yeah, at cold start it takes a while. I don't know why, but it takes like a little bit of cranking to start. But I guess that's how it is. Okay, I don't have the pipes, the exhaust pipes on, so I'm not gonna go too long. So it starts and it's good. All right, so with that, guys, we're gonna put an end to this project. Ta-da! She's done. All right, so that's not only the end of the series in which we installed the TBI into this beautiful TR6, but it's also an end to a 4 months journey that probably most of you know, that we have probably about 20 episodes of rebuilding the engine of this car, installing CV joints, overhauling the differential, and many other things that we did just before we installed the throttle body injection system. So if you've only seen the 5 episodes about the injection system installation, you may go and check also the first 20 episodes about overhauling this vehicle top to bottom. So that's gonna be it for this project. Maybe in the spring we're gonna have another, like a follow-up episode after Tom starts driving it, and we're gonna have some feedback from him, etc, etc. But for now, that's gonna be everything. So thank you guys so much for sticking along with me on this journey. There's many other projects around. This is a GT6 that I've been restoring for a long time, so check out my other projects. They all have a playlist in my channel. So anyways, guys, I'm not gonna hold you up anymore here. Thank you so much for watching, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and supporting the channel. And I'll see you in the next project coming up soon. So see you then. Bye.